Holy shit, man. That episode got me. That ending, man. I cried my eyes out. Man. Subaru does not fucking deserve that, man. That was horrible. I mean, he was doing his best to control his body while shit was going down. That was fucked up. Begging for death from Julius and from Felix. Man, no. That sucks so hard. He worked so hard in this respawn. He did everything perfectly. They killed the whale. They saved Emilia. Emilia got her badass moment in front of the town. Oh, that sucks so hard, man. I wonder if there's any way that he's actually going to be able to take out Betelgeuse, because, Jesus, it just really doesn't seem like it if Betelgeuse is able to take over his body anytime he dies to, like, that point. I mean, it was the exact same thing that happened last time. Me and Sun Wukong were discussing it in one of his discussion streams. We guessed the fact that the Betelgeuse soul or spirit can pass on to other people in the cult. And we also guessed at that time that Subaru started laughing like a madman while Puck froze him to death was because Betelgeuse was infesting him. I just didn't expect it to happen again. I thought because he got rid of most of his sins and shit, like he was trying to atone, he was doing his best. He wasn't being slothful or wrathful or prideful. Fuck, man. That is just so painful. Oh, what's really interesting to me here is the visual effect that they had on him while he was being controlled by Betelgeuse. I mean, every time Betelgeuse was regaining control of Subaru's body, you had that, like, line of light in his eyes. But we've seen that line of light in Subaru's eyes a couple of times before, so I'm not sure if it is the same thing, and if every time he gets ridiculously angry and screams at people, like they showed it in that episode where it didn't show his face for a good long while, and then while he was talking to Crush, it showed just how pissed off and angry he was. So maybe every time he gets to that kind of point, it's a bit of a sin taking over his body. I honestly don't know. Maybe it's because the witch has already chosen him. Like, Satella's clearly got her scent all over him. So maybe every time he's acting like that, he's acting jealous or showing a bit of a sin. She's getting closer to him and slowly taking over his body in her own way. I don't know. But that visual effect was cool. Made it easy to see exactly who was being controlled by Betelgeuse at what point. And then Subaru, like, fighting it off was sick as well. So yeah. That was horrible. I don't know how he's going to deal with it now. I mean, obviously, we're going to get returns by death. There's no way they're just going to, like, move on from Subaru. That would be too cold. It'd be amazing. Like, if we stayed in this universe rather than following Subaru. And we had Emilia just become the heroine without Subaru around. But no, that can't be a thing. This is the first time, like, he's gotten fully controlled by it and shit. Who knows how he's going to come back, like... And seriously, I don't know any way he'd be able to deal with it. They'd have to keep one body of Betelgeuse alive, I guess, and just keep him chained somewhere and make sure he doesn't self-destruct. It's going to be really freaking hard to do for them. And they already worked so hard on the whale and everything else, and now he has to do all of that shit again, maybe? I mean, unless it wakes him up where he just passed out, like after the first self-destruct. Or it took out a good deal of the town, and then he woke up with Phyllis healing him. Maybe that's his new respawn point. That wouldn't be so bad. But I am thinking he's going way the fuck back to where Rem was. To where he sees Rem in the Appa stand. So aggravated. I really am. But we'll see what happens next week. I'm really interested in it. Speaking of things that aggravated me. I could see why last week everybody was laughing at every one of the anime-only viewers who was trying to understand what was up with Ram and the flower and what was going on. I mean, there were so many theories coming out. Thinking that Ram was part of the witch's cult. Thinking that Roswell had taken over her body. I think my main one was that I thought she remembered that Subaru got Rem killed and erased in one existence, and she was pissed for that. And it turns out it was just her defending the mansion. It was just the fact that she felt people entering her grounds. And naturally, after seeing it was a bunch of heavily armoured, guards and warriors from Crush and Anastasia's houses. Obviously, she thought they were coming after Emilia. She thought they were in danger, so she cast a spell on them. That was amazing. Meanwhile, the one thing that I didn't have any thoughts about, which turned out to be quite important, was that little red spirit that helped Subaru out, which I just didn't get at all. I just thought it was a lucky thing. I wasn't thinking about it much last episode. And it turned out that Julius can use spirits. He calls himself a spirit knight because he uses spirit magic and he trains with the sword. That's so cool. He's like an eldritch knight in D&D. I'm loving it. I would love to see him properly fight sometime because we've seen him kick Subaru's ass. That was 100% with the sword. We saw him use his magic in this episode where he linked everyone's gates. That was cool as it was, using spirit magic in that way. I mean, I've only ever seen Emilia use spirit magic to, like, sense her surroundings and, you know, shoot icicles. Meanwhile, Julius has all of these spirits, like, pretty much every element. He had a light and darkness one, the fire one, all the other different colours. Man, that was intense. Julius is going to be a badass when he gets into a proper fight. So yeah, this episode did not disappoint at all. I had so much fun with it. Even though at first I was a bit underwhelmed by the ramp thing. It was like, really? Is that it? And then they just moved on swiftly with it. Like, that was cool, but at the time I was like, you're not going to deal with that? It seemed like such a big, deep, important issue. And then there's also the fact that the letter Subaru tried to send to Ram was blank when he sent it to her. So I'm not sure if somebody messed with it at Magic or whoever he tried to have deliver the letter ended up changing the letter. I'm not sure, and I can't remember who he gave the letter to. I think it was the merchant, the one who was trying to buy all the swords for Krush. But I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember exactly, but that seems really important. Someone was trying to drive a wedge between Subaru and the Roswell mansion, and I really want to know who. But nah, they moved on from it. It was cool, and then we got to hear about poor Emilia, man. I mean, for some reason, Emilia was able to sense the fact that there was going to be an attack. I'm not sure how she did it. I'm not sure if it was something to do with her spirit magic, if she could feel the spirits stirring up, or how exactly she knew. But she knew something bad was about to go down, so she went down to the town herself and tried to get everyone to evacuate. Despite this, those assholes just ignored her, shunned her, as they do, because they hate half-elves. And even when it came down to this idea of the witch's cult attacking, they all just blamed her for it. They just wanted to get rid of her because it was clearly her fault the witch's cult was coming upon them. Because she's a half-elf and she must be connected to Satella. I mean, they're probably not wrong. That's pretty much all of our theories as well. But still, the idea of racism in this series is so deep. And Emilia is such a badass, seriously. I mean, just that was incredible as it is. Everyone who ever says Emilia is a cold-hearted bitch needs to back the fuck off, because she shows just how much she cares for the entire world. She's a bit too optimistic about it, she's a bit too innocent about things, but it is clear that she cares for everyone, she wants to protect everyone. That's just the kind of nice person she is. And in this episode, as well as that, we got to see her using Puck properly, like a badass. I mean, when she was fighting Elsa, the Bow Hunter, we didn't really get to see too much of that. Like, we got to see Puck doing his thing, but Emilia was more, you know, standing around. She wasn't very active. Whereas in this fight, when it came to her fighting the Finger, oh man, it was so sick. She was jumping around everywhere, flying through the air. She had all her little tiny ice crystals in the air so that she could see the unseen hands. Man, that was a straight 10 out of 10. That's the thing. She must have known about the witch's cult before, because she showed up to this fight having not seen the unseen hands or any of that, but she was prepared for the idea of an invisible attack coming at her. So I'm not sure if it is she has fought the witch's cult in the past, or if it's something more that she had just studied or knew about them, or Roswell told him something about them. Because, I mean, Roswell clearly knows about this shit, especially since he has Rem and Ram, and there's the chance that he used to be a member of this witch's cult, and maybe that's why he's protecting Emilia. Maybe the witch's cult was going after Emilia. I don't know. And there's also that fact that once she actually killed the Finger, she then started crying her eyes out. And that just reminds me a little bit of when whenever Subaru gets the returns by death, or whenever the unseen hand from inside Subaru, like Satella, grabs his heart, like apparently she constantly says "I love you" to Subaru, and a lot of people have said every time she does that, Subaru cries a little bit. So I'm wondering if it's that kind of connection as well, that Emilia might have, even though she had to kill Betelgeuse, she might have recognized him from somewhere in her past. I don't know, maybe. Again, theorizing, not 100% sure. It could also just be that she just had to kill someone and she didn't feel too good about it, or the fact that once she did finish everything, the townspeople were still looking at her as a monster. That craziness is just out of my mind right now. All I know was Emilia was a badass in this fight. Especially when she killed that final finger. Just casually walking up to him after she trapped him with the ice, puts her hand on his chest, and does the same thing that Puck had done to Subaru, just freezing him to death. Oh, so damn sick. It was so good seeing Emilia actually fight and be a badass for once. Oh, and speaking of badasses, Wilhelm's fight was great as well, even though he ended up losing it for a stupid reason. I mean, he can't really help it. He was busy dealing with all the unseen hands, and so far the fingers had just been using that. They hadn't actually been using their daggers. And then finally this finger whipped out his dagger and managed to almost get Wilhelm. Didn't quite, but then he self-destructed. Beat the crap out of him with that. Took Wilhelm out of the fight. Man, that was so cool. All the self-destructions were insane. And that's what you've got to be worried about when it comes to Betelgeuse. Since he can self-destruct, and since every time he dies he just passes on to another finger's body. Man, he could just do that as much as he wants. Just have like the whole witches cult charge into an area and just all explode. Just leave one alive to get into the body of and you're fine. That's a fucked up tactic right there. And Julius was just so awesome this week as well. I mean, we didn't get to see him fight too much, but he proved what kind of character he is, just how knightly he is. I mean, he was already doing that before, like when he bowed down and kissed Emilia's hand, how proper he is, how he kind of saved Subaru's ass with that beatdown, making sure that nobody else would attack him because he'd already gotten his punishment. But then in this episode, we've got him like calling Ram, Mistress Ram, being polite to everyone. And that ending where he had to take out Subaru. That was so powerful. I mean, he just so didn't want to. Wilhelm probably would have had an easier job of it. He'd already talked about how the age of chivalry was gone, but man, Julius seems to really believe in that shit. He didn't want to put Subaru down, but he realized this was Subaru's wish, and he was right. Like, if they didn't kill him, you know, Betelgeuse would just have a new body, get away, get a chance to attack again. Oh, man. So that was just so powerful. Both him and Felix crying their eyes out. I was crying my eyes out. I didn't want to see my boy Subaru going through that. Because he is such a real believable character, and he has worked so hard over these last bunch of episodes. And now what? We've got like 2, maybe 3 episodes left. I can't remember the exact count. And shit is going down. I want this to have a happy ending. I know it won't. Everybody keeps saying the final episode of this series is going to be completely soul-crushing. And that was soul-crushing enough as it was. So I'm very interested to see the next episode, what they do with it. If they do just go straight to returns by death, and exactly how far he does go back. Because if they go all the way back to before the whale fight, like, sure, they can skip over a lot of that and make it a lot faster, but it's still, it's going to be tough for anything particularly new to happen in this series before it ends at that point. God, that's going to be amazing. So yeah, absolutely incredible episode in my opinion. I cried like a bitch. I loved it. I loved the whole witch's cult member, like the finger. When he saw Emilia, he was having so much fun with it. He was calling her my witch. He was like proclaiming his love to Emilia, which means that he really does think Emilia is connected to the witches, if nothing else. Whether he really believes she's the witch of sloth or the witch of envy, the Satella thing. I mean, everybody thinks she's the Satella thing, but maybe she is like a vessel kind of thing. Maybe since Betelgeuse's power is being able to pass from body to body, maybe that comes from his mistress, the Witch of Sloth. In which case, maybe the Witch of Sloth can enter other bodies, and he's just figured out that there's a super powerful half-elven witch's body that he can maybe use. So maybe that was Betelgeuse' plan. Rather than straight up killing Emilia, they were planning on taking her and using her body and handing it over to the witch. But I don't know, there was that one timeline where Emilia had already straight up been killed by the witch's cult. As far as we know. I mean, Subaru never actually got into the door at that point. We saw 2 cases where Emilia had supposedly been killed. One where Subaru ripped his hand off, the other one where Puck cut his head off. And in both of them, we never actually see Emilia's body, so who knows? Maybe the Witch of Sloth really did take over her body at that point, and that was Betelgeuse's plan, and that's how Puck got released. Maybe that's why Puck's deal with Emilia is to destroy the world if shit goes down. Maybe her body can be taken over by any witch, and so she's so worried about what she would do to the world that she figures it would be better for the world to be destroyed if she was gone and if the witch had control of her body. I don't know. I really don't know. All I know is this series is absolutely amazing. It keeps me thinking. It keeps me guessing. It keeps me loving each moment. All the fights have been sick. The way it keeps me thinking about the fantasy elements is just amazing. So I love this episode. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below. If you like this review, wreck that like button like you mean it. Subscribe if you haven't already to see more. And I will see you guys next time.